Hello and welcome to Just Pauses. I know a couple of dear ones who, when asked, "How many friends do you have?" reply, "None." Or when asked to name a friend, they draw a blank. They cannot think of anyone. At first, I used to wonder what must it be like to not have a friend, not even one. But today, when someone tells me that he or she does not have a friend, my eyes lit up in awe. Such a person is likely to have found contentment in self sufficiency rather than in social validation. Those without friends are not necessarily antisocial or broken. They may just prefer solitude, or unpleasant experiences may have made them cautious of being misunderstood or of being left in a lurch. It does not imply that they never speak with people or do not forge connections, do not develop acquaintances, or do not have social dealings. There are other equally precious relationships a person with no close friend may have. He or she may be a terrific spouse or an adorable sibling or a marvelous son or daughter. The choice is not always between two extremes, having a lot of friends or becoming a loner or a recluse. Those who say they have no friends are not people to be pitied upon. Rather, they are to be envied, for they are likely to have a deeper, better, and a more stable connect with self. They are likely to have greater depth in their character. They may have a bigger worldview and a greater generosity of heart, and they may care for a whole lot of other people around them. What happens when we have no friend? When we have no or very few friends, we turn inwards. We depend not on anyone else but on ourselves for everything. And our first and strongest bond has to be with oneself, I feel. What do you say? And what happens when we have a lot of friends? Expectations swoop in and settle down. We expect the friend to be there for us, to be happy and sad with us, as and when we are. We expect trust and confidentiality, for we begin to pour out all our emotions and secrets. And the greatest expectation emanates from our inner fears. What if something goes wrong? What if there is a crisis? We shall need friends to be with us, isn't it? Hence, we keep a flock around us, thinking that they shall be our support system. We feel safe. However, there is no need to panic if you have no friends, for support and help often comes from the unlikeliest of sources. We can never foretell who shall be there for us when. So we can relax and enjoy our own company instead, without any fear of expectations leading to disappointments. I'm reminded of the words of Henry David Thoreau. He said, and I quote, "I never found a companion as companionable as solitude." Unquote. Some time ago, I happened to read this very amusing Japanese folk tale. Once upon a time in Japan, there lived two frogs. One lived in the city of Osaka and the other in the city of Kyoto. One day, the frog who lived at Kyoto decided to see Osaka, and the frog who lived at Osaka wished to go and see Kyoto. So, one fine morning in the spring, they both set out along the road that led from Kyoto to Osaka, one from one end and the other from the other. The journey was more tiring than they expected. Halfway between the two towns, there arose a mountain which had to be climbed. It took them a long time and a great many hops to reach the top, but there they were, at last, and how surprised each one was to find the other frog just there before him. They looked at each other for a moment without speaking and then fell into a long conversation explaining the cause of their meeting so far from their homes. They stretched themselves out in a cool, damp place, and as they were resting, the Osaka frog spoke up. "What a pity we are not bigger, for then we could see both the towns from here and tell if it is worthwhile to go on." "Oh, that can be easily managed," said the Kyoto frog. "We have only to stand up on our hind legs and hold on to each other, and then we can each look at the town he is traveling to." This idea pleased the Osaka frog so much so that he at once jumped up and put his front paws on the shoulder of his friend who had risen also. There they both stood, stretching themselves as high as they could and holding each other tightly so that they might not fall down. The Kyoto frog turned his nose towards Osaka. He wanted to see how Osaka looked like. And the Osaka frog turned his nose towards Kyoto. But they forgot that when they stood up, their great eyes lay in the backs of their heads, and that though their noses might point to the places to which they wanted to go, their eyes were looking at the places from which they had come. So the Osaka frog was looking at Osaka, and the Kyoto frog was looking at the expanse of his own city, Kyoto. Dear me, cried the Osaka frog. Kyoto is exactly like Osaka. It is certainly not worth such a long journey. I think I shall go home. If I had any idea that Osaka was only a copy of Kyoto, I should never have traveled all this way, exclaimed the frog from Kyoto. They both said a polite farewell to each other and set off for home again. Till the end of their lives, they thought and they told everybody they came across that Osaka and Kyoto were as alike as two peas. Though, of course, we know that they are as different as two towns can be. The story has several lessons. Every reader or listener is free to take his or her own. Most important one, though, is that life and everything therein is all about our perceptions. It is so easy to be mistaken. A snake may be mistaken for a rope and vice versa. So also it is about people. Not much is as it seems to be. Not many are as they seem to be. Each frog sets off thinking that his destination will be better than his hometown. However, our expectations and our easily mistaken senses can lead us astray. So, no friends or a few friends or many friends, you decide how you shall be happy. Thank you.